All right, so I just look at this video with this guy speaking about some of the negatives, the downsides of where we could be heading with AI, and it's very interesting because he makes some very valid points. So I just wanted to react to the video and let's have a look at some of the things that he is saying.
AI is the most powerful technology our species has ever developed, far more powerful than nuclear weapons, because nuclear weapons only work as a threat. No sane government would ever use them because it would end the world. But AI is already shaping our entire world, and that's only going to rapidly increase and become ever harder to spot. We're currently in the only iteration of AI that will ever be identifiable. In 5 years, it'll be completely undetectable. That means that it is insidious in a way that's impossible to overstate, especially in the context of algorithms. Next-gen AI algorithms won't even need to aggregate content to shape your worldview. It'll just create content, custom-tailored to your ethics, woven into your feed. Whatever type of person you think is the most compelling, next-gen AI will just make videos of that exact person saying exactly what the programming wants you to hear. The same way that I have a relationship with and some trust for creators I appreciate, like Crutches and Spice or Madeline Pendleton, we will have relationships with AI that we don't know are AI, and it will shape our worldviews. So with that in mind, the question of this first point is this. Holistically, do you believe that the application of the most powerful technologies that we have today is ethical? I'm not asking if there are specific uses of technology which are healthy or helpful, or whether technology is ever used for good. Obviously, it can be. I'm asking if overall you think that the application of the most powerful technologies in the world today are making the world better. Like, do you believe that current social media algorithms and nuclear weapons are making the world better? If not, then consider this. If you gave someone $100 and they used it to buy a weapon and rob you and your whole community, would you think it was wise to give them $1 million? The other part of this first point is this. What would you think if the person who you'd given $100 to and had used it to rob your whole community desperately wanted something? If that thief was using all their ill-gotten gains to get something, would you think that the effect of them getting that thing would be good for your community? The entities who really, really, really want AI are the CIA. The whole US government, but the CIA in particular, are the ones buying the most horrifying contracts and technologies, and megacorporations. Meta, Amazon, BlackRock, Blackwater. These are the entities who are now funding nuclear reactors and buying every water and power contract on the market out for decades to drive emergent AI. So do you think that the CIA, Zuckerberg, Bezos, and the largest private corporate militaries in the world having the most powerful tool in the history of the world is going to be beneficial for us? Even if we get multicolored breadcrumbs of next-gen Alexa or ChatGPT or laundry robots along the way?
So he's speaking about AI against humanity being used as a weapon. And while I'm definitely a proponent of AI, and I definitely see the benefits and the uses and the great it could bring to humanity, I definitely have to, look at it with a bit of a side eye, a bit of a question mark. Have to be definitely cautious. We as humans have to definitely be cautiously optimistic about it, because it's definitely a huge possibility. Like, look at it as simple as the way the internet is right now. Um, Misinformation and disinformation. You have people are divided, like, at a pretty much an all-time high. Blacks against whites, whites against blacks, Israel against Palestine, men against women. It's just so many factions and things going on with technology, and everything is just separating us as humans. Is sensitive. Nobody is sensitized to being human anymore. Nobody even shows compassion or cares about one another. We're definitely lacking in empathy a whole lot. So some of the points he was making is definitely
The second
valid.
point about AI is this. The heart of the colonial disease is dehumanization. Dehumanization of other people, dehumanization of ourselves, a severance of our inherently connective nature. AI has globalized that dehumanizing colonial lens. Anything we see now, we have to ask if it's real. We're already seeing this with the perpetrators of the current crimes against humanity calling into question the authenticity of the footage of their crimes. They don't need us to think that the images we're seeing are fake. They just need us to wonder. In that wondering, however small, our awareness of the humanity of the victims is already broken. We're no longer having the full emotional experience that we would if we were seeing it in front of us, or even a picture or video that we knew to be accurate. So AI plants a seed of doubt in every single person's heart, which will grow to feed our compliance. It's hard enough to act when we know that what we're seeing is real. Now, that seed of AI-generated doubt will give us an emotional escape from being present with reality, with humanity. Because we get good at what we practice, this seed of AI-generated doubt will poison our human relationships as well. In the same way that the men who learn romance from for-profit AI girlfriends will carry those practices and beliefs into any relationships they have with human women, we will all carry the AI-generated seed of doubt into our lives. Even as we intellectually know that the person in front of us is real, some part of our emotional being will have been trained by thousands of hours of online skepticism to wonder if what they're saying is real. In short, the second point here is that AI fundamentally achieves the end goal of the colonial project, which is the severance of our humanity. It's possible that AI will threaten the literal existence of humanity in the future, but insofar as humanity is a shared collective experience that involves empathy and seeing one another as human, AI is already ending humanity. Those first 2 points are pretty straightforward.
You know, he makes a very good point right there, because we have a world. It's 2024, and we in a world full of technology, and it seems like the world is just getting a worse and worse place. You look at the way that they're spending the money, the way that they're distributing the resources. It's like, why in the world we have all this technology if most of us aren't even gonna be able to benefit from it? Whereas we're only gonna be high tech slaves. They already run the psychonauts on us to the point whereas we go in wholesale into it. It's a crazy world that could possibly be emerging. Like, I'm definitely thinking within the next 5 years for sure. I want to be optimistic, and I honestly believe the way that the technology is rapidly advancing, I can't see it being less than 2 years, unless we run into some roadblock of computing power, or not enough energy, or they suddenly run out of money or something. That's the only way I could see it taking 10 years, 5 years to happen. This stuff is definitely going to change the world. It's definitely going to take place rapidly. It's going to be upon us way before we even have a chance to blink. Us as the regular people, That's why I'm urging so many people to get involved in learning about AI and just understanding it, understanding how you could use it, what's the benefits of it, what's the pros, what's the cons. Right now it's pretty much a wild west in terms of the AI. We pretty much back at the foundation of discovering the internet all over again, and we already could see the ramifications of the internet and social media on our culture and us as humans. So imagine a world where things get way easier to do. We are completely in the Jetsons within the next 5 years, like where we wasn't even expecting to be. Like, we already see how they innovate with things. We already see the precautions they take on things, and how they actually decide to put safety features. Is more of a reactive approach. It's never a proactive approach. It's after somebody gets killed or a few hundred people die, then they decide, okay, hey, we need to put some type of safety parameters on it. But right now, those talks aren't really being had, especially amongst like the people that control the world. So was it going to be for regular everyday people like me and you?
True story from some 200 years ago, which I'll simplify down to one village and industry and use modern pay scales, but don't let those distract you from the historical accuracy of this tale. Once upon a time, there was a village in the countryside where they raised sheep and made wool cloth. Over time, one family grew wealthy and started hiring their neighbors to make the cloth. They paid their neighbors $200 a day to weave, and then they sold the cloth. That was a living wage, so the neighbors didn't mind working for this family. And eventually, all 300 people or so in the village worked for this one family, and they let their own flocks and tools go because it was easier to just work for this one family who grew very wealthy indeed. So wealthy that they built a factory and bought a set of massive industrial looms. These looms could do the work of the entire village in a day with only 5 employees to tend to the machines. So the family immediately fired 295 of the villagers and cut the pay for the remaining 5 down to only $50 a day because they knew they could be easily replaced from the now massive pool of unemployed villagers. The villagers were furious. Even if they started themselves weaving again, there was no way they could compete with the low prices that rich family could sell at with their looms. And they had no other way to make a living. As the families watched their children starve, they grew outraged and they organized. They went to their rich family and asked them to hire them back, and the rich family laughed at them. So the next night, the villagers broke into the factory and smashed all the looms. The rich family was outraged, bought more looms and armed guards. Villagers fought the guards, smashed these looms too. All this took time, and during that time, the rich family was not selling any cloth. So eventually, they posted jobs again, the old weaving jobs, for $200 a day. The organized villagers met with the rich family and said, "We'll work for you again, but since you could afford to buy multiple sets of these $1,000,000 machines, then it seems pretty clear that we weren't getting our fair share of the profit we were generating for you. So our wage is now $300 a day, and if you ever try and pull that crap again, every one of us walks away and there'll be no one to tend to your theft machines. All your profits are built on our labor, and if you ever forget that again, we're happy to remind you. When you use new technologies to drive the value of our labor and the quality of our lives down, instead of lifting the entire community up, then we will prevent your technologies from functioning at all, and you will not make a single penny." The rich family agreed, but then organized with all the other rich families in the other villages to create an army, and they used that army to round up and execute all the organizers from all the villages and crush the traumatized communities into compliance. They bought new looms and drove the value of labor so far below a living wage that the traumatized villagers had no time to do anything but try and scrape together crumbs for their next meal. And those families used the skyrocketing profits to convince the traumatized villagers that having different colored crumbs to scrape together was the pinnacle of freedom and fulfillment. They then took great care in writing the history books and painted the people who had smashed their looms as anti-technology and opposed to progress. This is the actual history of the Luddite movement. The Luddites were not opposed to technology for some abstract spiritual reasons. They were opposed to the intentional devaluation of their labor and the weaponization of technology against them to starve their families, while mill owners bathed in champagne. I remember when I learned about the Luddites in junior high thinking, what idiots, technology is great. The fact that my state-sponsored education left me with only that conclusion is because the mill owners won. The lesson here is this. The ethics of technology are in what is being done with it. GMO crops are a great example of this. I understand biology well enough to know that there's no biological risk in most GM foods. Almost all of it is just accelerating what organic growers select for over generations anyway, like synchronized germination and fruit size. We want fat kernels of grain that all mature at the same time. So I have no particular issue with GM technology on its own terms. I categorically oppose all GM foods and companies because of what is being done with it. It's a weapon. Those genes are trademarked and then intentionally planted next to organic, traditional, and indigenous growers' fields. When they cross-pollinate, as all grain does, then the massive multinational corporations who own the patented genes sue the small-scale organic and indigenous growers for copyright infringement and shut them down. They intentionally crush both market competition and, more importantly, biodiversity and indigeneity using GM crops.
And his story is like so telling of what's already happened and definitely what could happen again, you know? Like, look at everything that's going on in the world right now. Look at the thing with Luigi and the United Health CEO. Look at the way that the government is treating citizens all around the world. I'm not even going to call a particular government. You could just pick one out the hat and just look at the way they're treating the citizens, the ordinary people, and you could see like it's something going on with the world. Look at the way the corporations treat us as consumers, you know, as the paying customers, not let alone the workers, the people who work for those companies and are building those companies up. And it's definitely going to be the same thing with AI. I can't see a world where it's not going to be the same thing, you know. You typically do the things in the past typically shape the things in the future, you know. And people don't have any care for workers now. They've already been training the AI for the last few years on our data, you know, content creators, people that use the platforms, anybody that has used ChatGPT is essentially a part of the beta test program, you know? So it's hard for me to believe. It's hard for me to believe that it's not gonna happen, even though I'm very hopefully optimistic that they would get a hold on it. They would be very ethical about it, and definitely look at the humanity of it and the potential risk and the potential harm that AI and artificial intelligence and robots could do in the way that they shape the world and the way that they shape humanity. Definitely, if we don't be safe and ethical about it, we definitely gonna have a problem on our hands. We definitely gonna have a problem on our hands, and it could even be the extinction of the human race. Unfortunate to say, but this is just my thoughts, man. I'm just looking at everything that's going on in the world right now, everything that's already happened, the things that have been happening. Honestly, we need a revolution, man.